President Biden will address the nation tonight about his difficult decision not to seek re-election. He'll be wrapping up an almost unparalleled career that has spanned more than 5 decades in Washington as a senator, vice president, and now president. CBS News chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes looks back at Biden's life in public service.
With the COVID.
President Biden's recent struggles might lead some to forget.
In this bill, we do both.
That this is how he was known throughout the 80s and 90s.
I'm ashamed of the lack of moral backbone.
As one of the most impassioned orators in the U.S. Senate.
We got ourselves a problem.
He also had a knack for negotiations, securing victories on the 1994 crime bill and the Violence Against Women Act. One of the youngest senators ever elected, Biden was sworn in at his son's bedside after the 2 boys were injured in a car crash that killed Biden's first wife and daughter. He would go on to become a leader on the Foreign Relations and Judiciary Committees.
Sexual harassment charges that have been made against Judge Clarence Thomas.
Chairing high-stakes confirmation hearings.
My name is Joe Biden. I want to be the Democratic nominee.
Biden's first bid for president in 1987 folded quickly amid allegations of plagiarism. He ran again in 2008, creating standout moments with quick quips like this.
Rudy Giuliani, there's only 3 things he mentioned in a sentence, a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean, there's nothing else.
But Biden finished far behind a pair of younger Democratic senators, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama.
Joe Biden won't just make a good vice president, he will make a great vice president.
Who went on to choose Biden as his running mate. Biden defended the Obama record in sharp debates.
Jack Kennedy lowered tax rates, increased growth. Ronald Reagan.
Now you're Jack Kennedy.
And fiery convention speeches.
Osama bin Laden is dead and General Motors is alive.
Obama, in turn, gave Biden high-profile roles, spearheading economic stimulus.
I'm asking my vice president.
Gun control.
That's why I've asked the vice president.
And even a moonshot to end cancer.
I'm putting Joe in charge of mission control.
After cancer claimed the life of Biden's older son, Beau, he decided against running in 2016 before giving it one last shot at the age of 78 in 2020. He got off to a slow start, finishing 4th in Iowa.
On to New Hampshire.
And 5th in New Hampshire, before South Carolina put him back on a path to the White House. Now, as he closes the door on what would have been his final race, it's worth remembering this wisdom from his first bid for the White House nearly 4 decades ago.
You know, this is presidential politics. One of you press folks asked me, he said, Biden, what's going to happen when the white-hot heat turns on? It's a tough arena, but I'm a big boy. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Well, President Biden's address to the nation is destined for the history books. But while his decision not to seek re-election is monumental, he is not the first incumbent president eligible for a second term to step away from it. For more on Biden's decision and its historical context, we're going to bring in Lindsay Chervinsky. She's the executive director of the George Washington Presidential Library and the author of Making the Presidency, John Adams and the Precedents That Forged the Republic. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, the other day I was saying I'm sick and tired of saying unprecedented because it's popping up in my script over and over and over again. But the other way of saying unprecedented is saying we are living through history right now. And certainly Biden's address to the nation is going to be a moment like that. It's going to give him an opportunity to define his legacy to the American people. How will this moment stack up in the history books?
Well, you're right. We have been using the word unprecedented a lot, I think in the last decade, but especially in the last couple of months. So it is definitely a historic moment we are living through. And I think Biden's speech will likely cap that off. He has the opportunity to speak to the higher purpose of why he was originally running, why he was serving, and what he sees as the next step for the nation. And very few presidents have the opportunity to do that without the mess of partisan politics. But by deciding that he was not going to run, he has sort of elevated himself to a head of state without all the mess of head of party. And that's a very unusual opportunity.
The lead up, though, has been a little messy, I think. You know, in the last few weeks or so, there was a lot of insistence from his team that he was definitely staying in the race. I think even on Friday, they insisted that he was staying in the race, only to have this announcement happen on Sunday. And then there was this sort of drip of Democrats speaking to him or publicly asking him to step aside, and then leaks about private conversations. I'm wondering about kind of the impact of that buildup on his legacy.
Well, I think it will really depend on what happens next. If, Vice President Harris wins, then I honestly think that everything that has come in the last couple of weeks will be forgotten because it will be seen as him making the right choice and he did the right thing and he put his vice president in a position to win. If she loses, then it's possible that people will say, well, he really should have made that decision sooner, or he should have decided not to run early on so that there could have been a strong primary, which is one of the challenges, of course, of living through one of these historic moments is you don't know exactly how it's all going to shake out because so much of what happens next will shape our thinking on what are the key turning points and what really matters.
That's so true. And one thing that I've sort of considered, too, is as there is more distance between the moment of history, the way we process it changes. The way we think about it, our emotions change. Biden may be the first president in the modern era to drop out of the race so close to an election. Other incumbent presidents in history have dropped out of their reelection, such as Lyndon B. Johnson. How does Biden's decision compare to maybe others in history?
Well, you're so right about not having, all of the information or even the intensity of our emotion in the current moment, shadows how we think about things. And Johnson is a great example because Johnson dropped out in March of 1968. He gave a very lengthy speech and I think it's like 48 minutes into the speech said he would not be seeking re-election. But then he was really having second thoughts. And later on, as the convention neared, some of his campaign managers went to the managers of the convention and said, Biden might want to run. And they said, well, okay, he can run just like anybody else. And that information was not public right away. That came out later. And so it's just a good example of how sometimes we don't have the full story yet. What I think is unusual about this moment is unlike Truman, who dropped out, and then Johnson, who dropped out, theirs was really over issues, the war in Korea, the war in Vietnam, and those are big structural divisions in society. Whereas Biden's big problem was his age, and that's not really transferable to any other Democrat. And so I do think we might be in for a little bit of a different situation.
Yeah, really interesting. Lindsay Chervinsky, thank you so much.
Thank you.